Great. So let's go ahead and get started. Welcome all. This is our second learning community call for the maternal child health adolescent well-being objective. Before we get started, we have a quick check-in question for folks. So we'll go in our Mentimeter here. Ask what your favorite springtime activity is. It's very topical. Gardening. Oh, that's a great one. Gardening is a popular one. Hiking. Ooh, I am envious of whoever is raising baby chicks and ducks. See if a couple more folks want to share. Cats for walks, I like that. Ooh, bonfires and s'mores. Yes, looking forward to that. All right, wonderful. Thanks for those responses. Gonna hop back here to our slides so that we can do a quick reintroduction of the team here at Extension that's supporting this work. So I'm Sarah Bolton. I'm the Regional Community Health Team Supervisor for UW-Madison's Division of Extension. I support statewide technical assistance and capacity building for our community health partners and work out of our Madison office. And I'm going to pass it over to Pearlie.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Pearlie Wong. I am part of Sarah's team. I'm the Regional Community Health Coordinator for the Northeast region. I'm based in Brown County in Green Bay. Sheena.
Hi, everyone. Sheena Cook-Bolsing, also part of the Regional Community Health Team based in Southwest Wisconsin. My home base, my office is in Vernon County. And kick it off to Selena.
Hi, everyone. My name is Selena Freimark. I am the coordinator for the Northwest region, and I am based in St. Croix County. I think it's back to Sarah. I'm not sure.
Yes, so some members of our team are unable to join us today. For those folks who are just hopping on the call, we'd love to hear your name, your role, your county of work, and we also shared our favorite springtime activity. And Selena, if you don't mind also just dropping the demographic survey, we'll ask folks to complete that as well. So a couple of folks on our team that aren't able to join us here today. Jen Braun is the Community Engagement and Health Coalition Specialist. She's worked extensively with youth advocates for community health. Taylor Seal is a positive youth development educator in Dane County, who's worked extensively on the youth engagement work. And then Amber Canto is the Health and Wellbeing Institute Director. Amber supports high-level administration of the MCH project. And then Zoe Gibbons is a project assistant in the Institute of Health and Wellbeing who supports this MCH adolescent wellbeing work. And Zoe is actually wrapping up her time on the MCH project as she is preparing to graduate. So we share a heartfelt thank you to Zoe for all her work on this project. So in our time together today, we will hear an update from the Department of Health Services, MCH team. We'll invite folks on the call to share any program updates they have. We'll review the finalized Foundations for Engaging Young People guide. We'll We'll have a presentation from our partners at NAMI Wisconsin. And finally, we will wrap up with next steps and any questions. So I encourage folks to use the chat feature or to raise your hand to ask any questions as we go. So before I pass it over to DHS, any questions that folks have before we get started? Thanks for those introductions there in the chat. Appreciate that. All right, lovely. Then I will kick it over to Heidi and Kara.
All right, I'll get started. Good morning, everyone. Heidi Massey. I am the lead for the Adolescent Wellbeing Objective. So all of you should have gotten an email from me reminding you of the Q1 report that's due today. I've gotten most of them. If you can't find the link or need an extension, please reach out to me. And if I don't see it in the next week, I'll probably send out another email to you just to remind you. And then hopefully you're making some good progress on your 2025 objectives. Reminder to, if you need technical assistance, to please utilize our experts at UW Extension. They are across the state and have a lot of great resources for you. I think the only other thing I wanted to remind you of is the MCH summits, and you should have those dates on your calendar, May 14th and October 29th. A reminder that you have to register for those to get the link, and they are recorded and they're available for the remainder of the year. So just a reminder to make sure you have that and get registered for those, the summit. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Kara to talk a little bit about 2026.
Thanks, Heidi. I'm just going to pause and see if there's any questions first about reporting or the summit. Okay, well, if you think of any, feel free to put them in the chat or send them to Heidi and myself. So my name's Kara Benjamin. I am part of the MCH team at DHS. I'm the supervisor for our child and adolescent health team. So we oversee the adolescent and child health domains within the maternal and child health block grant on our team. And we just wanted to take a little bit of time today to talk a little bit about planning for 2026. So over the past year, our Title V directors and a small team spent time doing a needs assessment for maternal and child health block grant to identify some key focus areas for 2026 to 2030, which is the next grant cycle. We're now in the stage of planning what our key strategies will look like in this new cycle. And adolescent and youth mental health continue to be one of our priority areas. So while we're, all together on a virtual space, we just wanted to, take a couple minutes to see where you're all at with your well-being work and get a sense of what work you might be interested in doing in 2026 and beyond. So we just have a couple questions that we're hoping you'll participate in to help us identify what potential strategies or work could look like for health department objectives to engage in 2026. I know we're far off from when health departments usually pick your objectives for the following year, but this will just help us in starting to plan what those might look like. So we have some questions in the Menti. So if you are in the Menti link, the first question we have is around if you think your agency will select or work on adolescent well-being in 2026. We're just trying to get a sense of how many health departments might be interested in continuing or discontinuing the work that they're currently doing. Like I said, I know this might change based on your community's priorities and how the rest of 2025 goes, but feel free to add your thoughts there. And then we'll have 2 more questions after this, and one will be open-ended. So if there's anything that we didn't quite cover, feel free to put that in the open-ended question.
Kara, there's a question in the chat if there's a limit on how many years folks can select this objective.
That's a good question. we, anticipate kind of having something related to adolescent well-being throughout this next 5-year cycle. And sometimes objectives do change from year to year, depending on priorities and how things shift and how things are going. So it's hard to say for sure. Right now, there's not like a current limit that we have in our mind, but if you have thoughts on that, we'd be happy to hear what that might look like in terms of what's helpful for planning. I know sometimes strategies might be multi-year projects, so. Heidi, do you have anything that you would add to that?
Yeah, there's not a limit on years. We hope your strategy continues to build and grow. So it may look different from year to year. You may have engaged different partners. You may do more with youth engagement. So each year, we hope you build on what you've done before, but there's not a limit.
Thanks. All right, I think the responses are slowing down. So I think we can go to the next question. So for this question, we kind of categorize a couple different types of activities, some things that folks are already doing and some that folks might not be currently doing. We're just trying to narrow in on potential types of strategies that you might be interested in. And you'll notice that this list is not anywhere near comprehensive, but it does include some things that folks are already engaging in with MCH funding. This will just give us a better sense of what potential categories we might be able to offer within the objective, knowing that we can't do everything. And like I said before, the next question will be more open-ended if you want to elaborate on what you selected for this question, or if there's other ideas you have that aren't captured in these categories, we'd love to hear those too in the next open-ended question. We'll just give a minute or two for folks to read this and respond. And I think you should be able to select, oh yeah, up to 3. So feel free to select 1, 2, or 3. I see some answers still coming in, so we'll just give it another minute here. All right, I haven't seen any others added in the last like 30 seconds. Sarah, I can't remember how many were added before, but if you think it's good, we can go to the next. Oh, there's another one. Does it stay open if we go to the next question?
Could you try again?
Oh, now my Siri's talking to me.
It'll move to the next question for folks.
Okay,
But I would also welcome folks if they're maybe thinking on this, you could enter it in the chat, or we can go back to it in Menti too.
for sure. Okay, I think it's slowing down, so we can go ahead to the next question, but if folks didn't get a chance to but want to put in their thoughts, feel free to put it in the chat. So this is gonna be just an open-ended question, so we want to dig a little bit more into any specific activities or, initiatives or policies that your agency is interested in to improve mental health, youth mental health in your community. So for example, if you selected other in the last question, you might want to elaborate on what you're interested in. If you don't know yet, that's okay too. Yeah, we welcome any of your thoughts and ideas of what you might be interested in doing to improve youth mental health in your community. I'll also say that this doesn't have to be the only space that you provide feedback. If you want to provide additional context or more information about any of these questions or answers, you can definitely email Heidi or myself directly, and we're happy to hear your thoughts. So we'll just give a couple minutes since it'll take a little bit more time for folks to type in their answers. All right, seeing a lot of ideas here. Suicide prevention, support groups at schools, youth peer advocates, other peer-led youth groups in schools, peer-to-peer education, addiction prevention and early intervention. Hopefully you can't hear that. The loud jets are flying over my house right now. I think Zoom usually does a good job of bringing that up. All right, we'll just give it like one more minute to put in any other ideas you have here, but yeah, if you think of anything outside of this or after this call that you didn't put in this, but you really want us to know about or think about, feel free to either put it in the chat or send us an email. All right, I haven't seen any others come in for about 30 seconds or a minute or so. So I think we can end the mentee, Sarah. So thanks everybody for adding thoughts that you have for 2026 and on. It's always hard for us to try to balance like keeping things as flexible as possible so health departments have options based on what their community needs are, and trying to narrow things as well to make sure we're working towards a common goal and some shared measures at the state level. So this is really helpful for our planning. And if you think of additional thoughts that you would like to share with our team, we're more than happy to hear your feedback, and feel free to reach out to us. So thanks for the airspace, team. I think I'm passing it on to extension.
Great. Thank you, Kara. Thank you, Heidi. We also wanted to provide an opportunity to provide any program updates they'd like to share. So if folks have updates they'd like to share, you're welcome to come off mute or share in the chat. The Ho-Chunk Care team was not able to join us today, but they did have updates to share with the group. So I will go ahead and put those in the chat. And welcome any other updates that folks have.
Well, here in Burnett County, we, in coordination with our ARPA grant that we still had some money left over, ran an expressive arts or youth expressive arts scholarship program where kids put together, middle school and high school, put together any type of art presentation that would raise awareness about mental health and substance misuse and all of that. And I didn't know how it would be received, but we had 25 entries, and we were able to give away 5 scholarships. And now we are hosting all of those entries at a local art studio to be able to exhibit those to the community, and then hoping to grow from there on how we move forward with this type of a program.
Wonderful. Great update. All right, I'm going to continue on, but folks, please feel free to share additional updates in the chat here. So next, we wanted to review the final foundations for Engaging Young People guide. So we're happy to announce that this guide, created with young people across the state, is now public and available. So the Foundations for Engaging Young People, a beginning guide to meaningful youth engagement and health outreach efforts, is now posted on our MCH website. So the development of this guide has been an iterative process. So I know some folks have seen different drafts of this guide. So I will just very briefly share some background on how the guide was developed and give a quick overview of its contents. So the preparation for this guide occurred from 2023 to 2024 in a partnership with Patch, or Providers and Teens Communicating for Health. Pretty sure I just saw a Patch update come through the chat, so very timely. The team met with high school students across the state in virtual monthly meetings, of which students were paid for attending. And the youth authors of this guide provided feedback for UW Extension's Youth Advocates for Community Health Action Planning curriculum. So through that process, youth researched health equity issues in their local counties. So that included Brown, Dane, Marathon, Racine, and Winnebago counties. And they identified substance misuse and infant mortality as topics that impacted all 5 counties. So together, they created this guide to inspire and inform local tribal health departments to begin that meaningful youth engagement work, as well as to give recommendations on how youth should be directly involved in addressing substance misuse and infant mortality across Wisconsin. So this guide has a total of 6 pages, so easily digestible and a relatively quick read. And youth designed this intentionally, giving adults the basic foundations for starting youth engagement, with a reminder that community engagement principles with youth are the same as with adults. So this section reiterates how small actions can have big impacts, and what the difference really is between tokenism, engagement, and really meaningful engagement. So this section also explores different ideas for capacity building and partnership development in support of those youth engagement efforts. And then this examples and strategies section gives a wide range of different youth engagement types and some strategies for success, as well as a more detailed look into what the youth authors of this guide specifically recommended around infant mortality and substance misuse initiatives in Wisconsin. So the engagement types outlined here include surveys, conducting focus groups, research activities, with additional details on what that might look like on this second page here. One-time programs such as a marketing campaign, and then ongoing or reoccurring youth coalitions. So we're going to very quickly hop back into our Menti here for just some brief reflections from folks. And recognizing that some folks have seen elements of this youth guide before, and that for some folks this may be new content, but we just wanted to check in at a high level what type of engagement activities you may have implemented with youth, and what activities you might be interested in exploring further. So this first question is around what engagement activities has your organization implemented with youth? We're seeing a fair number of one-time programs and surveys. And for folks who are sharing those one-time programs, if you want to drop in the chat what those programs were, would be helpful for others. Lionheart experience. Great, thank you, Anna. Mental Health Summit. Great. All right, I'm going to head to our next question of what are you interested in exploring? So what engagement strategy maybe you haven't implemented yet, but maybe you're interested in exploring more? Great. So we've got a fair amount of interest, looks like in focus groups and youth coalitions. All right, seeing our answers slowing here. Thanks for those responses. This is helpful information for us as we think about what we might dig into deeper in those regional workshop spaces. All right, so finally, the last page of this guide gives some additional resources for local tribal health departments once they have a strong grasp of foundations for engagement. And again, this guide is available for download on our MCH website. You can also find members of the team at the upcoming annual Wisconsin Public Health Association Conference. That will be in Milwaukee in May. So we will have a table and a poster session specific to this youth engagement work. So would highly encourage folks, if they're in attendance, to please connect with us. All right. I'm going to pass it over to our partners at NAMI, and I'll thank them for their patience as we're running just a few minutes behind.
No problem. Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here.
We're excited to be here. Molly is sharing your screen right now. But my name is Emily Smiley. I'm the program director at NAMI Wisconsin. We are so excited to be able to talk to you today about some of what we do and some of our programs. Molly, I'm going to just send it to you to introduce yourself.
Hey everyone. Yeah, thanks for having us. My name is Molly Shea. I am the program coordinator at NAMI Wisconsin, and I support our youth programs. And so we're really excited to talk a bit about those today.
So we're going to start with giving you a little bit of an overview of who we are. We're part of NAMI Wisconsin, which stands for the National Alliance on Mental Illness of Wisconsin. We are a national organization that has 3 tiers. So we have a national office out in the DC area. We have a state office in every state, which is our office in Wisconsin. And then we have local affiliates, which you can kind of see on our map here. So you may be able to see where you live if you've got a local affiliate that covers your area. If you don't, no worries. That's what our state office is here to do, is help and support those, what we call our teal areas of the state on this map. But our mission is to improve the quality of life of people affected by mental illness and promote recovery. And we do that by supporting people at whatever stage they're at with mental illness or their family members' mental illness. And a very fun fact about NAMI is actually, it was founded right here in Wisconsin, in Madison, actually. And now we are a national organization, which is very, very cool. We were founded a little bit over 40 years ago. We stand on 4 pillars. So our goals are to support, educate, provide awareness, and advocacy. So for support, we provide no-cost peer-led support groups and individual support. And then we also provide education. So we have education programs we're going to talk about a little bit later, but that educate individuals about mental illness. We do awareness work to promote just public education in general around mental illness. And then we advocate at all levels of government. So for us, that mostly looks like supporting the local level of advocacy and then advocating at the state level, but sometimes we also advocate at the national level as well.
All right, so I'm going to take a few minutes and just lay the foundation for sort of the why of NAMI, but also our youth programming and why that is so important. And so I'm going to start on a national level with some national data, and then we'll go to a slide eventually that is Wisconsin-specific data. So nationally, 50% of all lifetime cases of mental illness begin by age 14 and 75% by age 24. So it's really in that youth and young adult area. 50% of youth ages 8 to 15 with a mental health condition do not receive treatment. That's like 3rd grade to sophomore year of high school. Additionally, about 50% of students ages 14 and up with a mental health condition will drop out of school. And then 70% of youth in state and local juvenile justice systems have a mental health condition. So specifically talking about suicide at the national level for a second, So nationally, suicide was the second leading cause of death among individuals between ages 10 and 14. That's huge. And also the second leading cause of death between individuals 25 to 34, as well as the third leading cause of death among individuals in the 15 to 24 year age. So suicide is among the top three leading causes of our youth, 10 to 34. And additionally, rural youth are at an increased risk of suicide, and yet we don't have the proportional youth suicide prevention services to sort of help with that. So that is something in particular to think about when we think about Wisconsin. And then also sort of on this bar graph over here, you can see that there are certain high-risk populations as well. And so those include several youth populations, such as, like we mentioned, young adults, high school students, as we mentioned, and also LGBTQ youth. So I will zoom in for a second and to the state of Wisconsin, and we're going to look at some Office of Children's Mental Health data. This is from their latest report, which you might have seen, but it is the 2024 annual report that came out this year. And what they did in this report was take a look at 10-year trends with specifically high school students is what these numbers relate to. And so just running through them here quickly, depression in high school students has increased 42% in the past 10 years. Self-harm, 21% in the past 10 years. These are not the increased numbers we want to see here. The youth who have considered suicide has been a 41% increase in Wisconsin over the last 10 years. Additionally, decrease. Students don't feel like they belong at school, and that belonging at school has decreased. So how can we create that belonging element for them? Part of this happens to do with extracurriculars. And so there are lower levels of participation with extracurriculars as well. And then finally, we have sufficient sleep has decreased. And there's even more in that report. So let's talk, now that we've talked a little bit about the data nationally and in Wisconsin, about warning signs in youth. And there we go. Here are some of the warning signs that are youth specific, and they do sort of mirror just non-youth specific warning signs, but for example, but these are some of the warning signs that we'll talk about in our youth programs, because it's so important that youth are aware of what these signs are for both themselves and others, especially with the prevalence of being diagnosed with a mental health condition or having a mental health condition by age 14 to 24. And so trying to harm or kill oneself or making plans to do so, severe out of control or risk-taking behaviors, not eating, throwing up, or using laxative to lose weight, sudden overwhelming fear for no reason, feeling very sad or withdrawn for more than 2 weeks. The importance of teaching kids and those who work with kids, the importance of the youth-specific warning signs is that recognizing symptoms early and getting treatment early, the earlier the better is what we say, because it can really aid in that successful recovery. And just a side note, I took this from a new one-pager, although it's back-to-back, two-pager, called Understanding Youth Mental Health, A Guide for Families. And so some of this information that we're talking about that's in these slides today, like youth mental health statistics, warning signs, and then language we'll talk about, are on this sheet. This is really helpful if there are people that you work with that are parents and caregivers and families who might need some resources wherever your county health department is located. So on the front side, they have that. And then on the back side, there are some resources put together specifically for all these areas of support for kids, because we know all these areas of support are super important. And I will also say this was created by our NAMI Wisconsin Youth Advisory Council. And these are youth and young adults ages 18 to 26 who support on bringing that youth voice to the NAMI Wisconsin Board of Directors, and they work on all kinds of projects related to youth mental health. So this is something that they created. Also, you will get the slides to this, but if you click them, you can get to digital version of the resource. I'll turn it back over to Emily.
Thanks. So as Molly kind of alluded to with those stats, this is why we're talking about this. It's so important for us to have the conversations around mental health and mental illness. It's what our whole organization does, right? But our goal today is to have you leave with some resources that hopefully you either didn't know about before or knew something about, but that you can pass on to people in your community or utilize yourself or with your family or whatever they may look like. But the first thing we want to do to lay this foundation is talk about why language matters. So the easiest thing you can do when it comes to mental health and mental illness is being aware of your language and how your language might affect those around you who are living with mental illness. Where our goal is to decrease stigma. When an easy way to decrease stigma is to think about the language that you're using. So there are a lot of things that we use colloquially when we talk that are really stigmatizing to those living with a mental illness. So words like crazy are often in people's regular day-to-day speech, or saying something like the weather is so bipolar, things like that. So easy things, easy fixes is just saying, instead of the mentally ill, a person who lives with a mental health condition, or a person who lives with a mental illness, using that person first language, which I know we've kind of all talked about. But using that person first language can really make the difference between someone feeling supported and feeling isolated. And watching those stats that Molly talked about before, youth specifically are feeling more and more isolated from their communities, which is not adding to the negative, which is adding to the negative stats that we saw earlier. So we have a handout on this as well, but the goal is to use person first language and try not to use stigmatizing language like psycho, crazy, lunatic, calling someone a schizophrenic or a bipolar. And there is a handout. Again, Molly said that you're going to be getting these slides, but we just wanted you to know that there is a handout. You can click on it in the slides, and that's something that you're welcome to share if you feel like it's appropriate. So the other thing I want to talk about is some common stigmatizing phrases that we don't realize might be stigmatizing. And this is really about youth and parents. So something that we hear a lot is they're just being dramatic, especially about teenagers, or they'll grow out of it. They're just a bad kid. They're just a troubled kid. They just want attention. Boys don't cry, man up. They're just lazy. Um, don't talk about it. It just makes things worse. You must not be disciplining them enough. That often goes to parents. If you were a better parent, they wouldn't act like that. And when it comes to mental illness, our goal is to support the families and the people that are experiencing, the signs and symptoms that come along with mental illness. And it is an illness, just like physical illness is an illness. So our goal is to destigmatize it, because some of the behaviors or the symptoms that come with mental illness are not things that people just grow out of. They need the help and support from a professional clinician or a support group, or whatever the different coping skills, and we're going to talk about that they can use for that. But the earlier that people seek treatment, the better, and the faster that they are in recovery. And that is something that we know at NAMI.
Awesome. So let's move now into a overview of some of our youth programs at NAMI. And so on the left side, we have NAMI national programs, and basically what that means is that these can be run and are run in any state, can be run in any state. And then on the right, these are NAMI Wisconsin specific programs, and so that means that they were developed right here in Wisconsin. So I will kind of walk us through from young kids, like elementary school students, to college age. So we'll hit sort of each group in between there. So we can start with, let's talk about mental illness. And so that's actually a 5-minute video. and I will play that for us. This is one of our programs for usually like K through 2, but any elementary student, as well as we recently played this at our NAMI Wisconsin annual conference last week. It's really good for any ages, but it has this like fun animated feel. So let's take a look.
Let's talk about mental illness with NAMI Wisconsin. NAMI is an acronym that stands for National Alliance on Mental Illness, and we are an organization that helps people who are affected by mental illness. Mental illness can sometimes be a tough thing to talk about, so if you need to pause this video or take a break at any point, please feel free to do so. So what is mental illness anyways? A mental illness is a type of illness that you can't see that happens in the brain. Just like physical health, we all have mental health. It's our thinking, our feelings, our emotions, and our moods. Feeling down, sad, or stressed is a normal part of life, just like it's normal to feel happy, confident, and carefree sometimes. We all have positive and negative emotions that come and go based on what's happening around us. When you start feeling overwhelmed, anxious, or stressed out, it's a good idea to check in with your mental health and practice some positive coping skills. Coping skills are tools you can use to help you handle difficult emotions, decrease stress, and maintain positive mental health. Some helpful coping skills you can try include deep breathing, coloring, reading, or a mental health check-in. Let's try a mental health check-in right now. Look at this thermometer. Are you feeling tired blue, calm green, nervous yellow, upset orange, or out of control red? If you are red, orange, or yellow, it would be a good idea to use a coping skill to try to relax. Now that we know a little bit more about mental health and coping skills, let's talk about the difference between mental health and mental illness. A mental illness is an illness that affects the way people think, behave, feel, or interact with others. There are many different types of mental illnesses, and they have different symptoms that impact people's lives in different ways. A lot of people live with a mental illness. In fact, 1 in 5 people, that's 20%, will be diagnosed with a mental illness in their lifetime. The other 4 out of 5 people will know a friend or family member that is living with a mental illness. So this affects everyone. Have you ever broken a bone? What did you do? You went to the doctor to get an x-ray, and they put your arm in a cast. Breaking a bone is common, and no one told you to just snap out of it as if you could control whether or not it was broken. How about when you're sick with the flu? You take time off to rest, take care of yourself, and maybe even go to the doctor. No matter how hard you try, you can't use the power of your mind to mend bones or cure illness. Like a malfunctioning traffic light turning the wrong color and messing up traffic, mental illnesses are sometimes caused by chemical imbalances in the brain, causing signals to be disrupted. They can make it hard to do things like homework, chores, and hanging out with your friends. Support friends with mental illness the same way in which you would support a friend with a broken arm. Let's review some common mental illnesses. When someone feels sad almost all the time when they're in a happy environment, they might live with a mental illness called depression. Living with depression feels like there's a rain cloud stuck over your head that keeps pouring down on you, but no one else can see it. Everyone feels sad sometimes, but when you're sad all the time, you should reach out to a trusted adult for help. Another example of a mental illness is when someone feels nervous or scared, even in the calmest of situations. This is called anxiety. While everyone may get nervous over a test or a big event, a person who lives with anxiety has a hard time enjoying life like they should because their intense fears and worries get in the way. People who live with a mental illness aren't choosing to feel this way. In fact, they can't control it any more than you can control having a sore throat. And to get better, they need to reach out and ask for help. Telling a trusted adult, including a parent, teacher, grandparent, or school counselor that you don't feel well is the first step. Most people who live with a mental illness get better. They can talk to someone like a therapist, learn a new coping skill, or even take medication from a doctor. A very brave person can live with anxiety, and a person who appears happy can be living with depression. If you think you may have a mental illness, do not be afraid to go to the doctor or talk to a trusted adult. You are not weak, it is not your fault, and you are not alone. Let's recap what we learned today. First, 1 in 5 people live with a mental illness, so it's pretty common. Second, we all have mental health. Check in on yours every now and again. Third, finding coping skills that work for you to help you feel better is crucial in keeping positive mental health. Fourth, if you're not feeling well, ask for help from a trusted adult. And finally, support someone living with a mental illness the same way you support someone with a broken arm. There are people all around you with mental illnesses leading normal lives. By talking about mental illness and supporting each other, we can heal minds as easily as we heal bones.
All right, so there's a lot in that video. So much is packed into those 5 minutes, which is really important too because our attention spans are shorter than they used to be. But yeah, so this is made for elementary age students. Hopefully you can see that element to that. There's also, to go along with this video, there are downloadable worksheets. So you can see on the left, there's that feelings thermometer to help kids do a mental health check-in. There's a sheet that helps them identify a trusted adult, and then also some healthy coping skills that they can try out. The video and the worksheets and stickers are all available in English and also in Spanish. And then, yeah, there are stickers available. So let us know. We can send you some let's talk about mental illness stickers. They're very cute. And finally, this is the link where you can find the video. If you want to show it to people today or show it to your families today, feel free to do so. Feel free to download the worksheets. Yeah, this can really be done anywhere. Got a chat. Oh, thanks, Emily. Okay, so we're going to move up in age just a little bit to about 3rd through 5th graders, with 4th grade really being the sweet spot for this presentation. And so Mental Health Chat is a presentation developed in Wisconsin. And so it's a NAMI Wisconsin program where one presenter will come into a classroom, 3rd through 5th grade, and they will give a 45-minute presentation. And a lot of the content is really similar to the content that we just saw in the video. Let's talk about mental illness. So for example, we talk about mental health versus mental illness because those things are different. We talk about how mental health is just as important as physical health and how to take care of both. Well, yeah. And then the specific illnesses that we talk about are anxiety and depression because of how common they are. Additionally, this is an interactive presentation, and so there's like a whiteboard, smartboard element to it that the presenters will ask for students for their engagement in it. And then there's also a short picture book reading called The Princess in the Fog. And so if you do want to go ahead and take a look or learn more about Mental Health Chat, that is the link. I think Emily put it in the chat. I'm just predicting. I didn't see it happen. But and there's also a YouTube video that you can watch if you want a gist of sort of how that presentation runs in a classroom. The only difference is we use a different book. So that's sort of an outdated video by like a couple years. So that is Mental Health Chat. And what's awesome about Mental Health Chat, little plug here, is that there are, as of last year, other state NAMIs and local NAMI affiliates outside of Wisconsin are actually being trained by us so they can bring this program to their communities because they loved it so much. So love that. All right, so now we get into NAMI Wisconsin Raise Your Voice clubs. So NAMI Wisconsin Raise Your Voice clubs are high school and middle school extracurricular clubs. There are about 35 across the state. Most of them are in high schools. A few of them are in middle schools too, which it definitely can be done in a middle school. So Raise Your Voice clubs are extracurriculars in which they empower youth to create a new conversation around mental health, engage in advocacy, do different activities around their school and their school community. So it's pretty awesome. So about Raise Your Voice, it is youth-led. It is not a support group, however, and it is hosted in partnership with a school or with a youth organization, and a youth organization would be something like a Boys and Girls Club. Additionally, something we do as Raise Your Voice clubs is have a Raise Your Voice Summit each year, and this helps clubs get ready for the new school year. It's very exciting. And also, I'll just advance the slide for a second. These are, I made this a couple months ago, so these are a little bit old, but last semester, these are just some of the events that Raise Your Voice clubs did. They can really do any kind of event that we require one per semester, but that will specifically engage their school community. So they had different fundraising, they do fundraisers, they can run trainings, they can have a guest speaker in, they can do a NAMI walk. So it's all kinds of different things, just spreading mental health awareness. And this is a snapshot of where our clubs are for the most part. It's geographically accurate in that they're in the correct county, right? But I didn't put exactly where the school is. But anyway, so that sort of gives you an idea if there might be a Raise Your Voice club near you. Emily, anything else you wanted to add about Raise Your Voice clubs?
Sure. I want to just add in general, every single program we're talking about today is free. We don't charge for any of our programming. So that's just an important baseline for all of you to know. For Raise Your Voice clubs, they are very easy to get started. We work directly with the advisor, which is generally a counselor at the school, but or a teacher, but they can have anybody as their co-advisor, and we do often have people who are community members as co-advisors, especially if they're invested in public health or mental health in some way. And then the other thing I will add is that we just are very proud of how well this program is spread post-COVID because of the stats that you saw earlier about youth not being as connected in schools. And so this is one way that we feel like youth can feel more connected in schools and provide a positive environment around talking about mental health and mental illness. As Molly kind of touched on, they're not support groups for youth. They really are kind of youth advocacy spaces for them to really talk about mental health and mental illness within their school communities.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, so now move into NAMI Ending the Silence. This is a national program, so it is done across the nation. Ending the Silence is a 50-minute presentation where two presenters will come into a school classroom or a youth setting or even like a staff in service, and they will talk about mental illness warning signs, statistics, and then also a young adult presenter will be one of those two presenters. And this young adult presenter is between the ages of 18 and 30, and they will share their story at living with a mental illness. And so we hear that we know that these are very impactful. And there's also on the next screen here. First of all, well, this was a recent presentation that was done in Kenosha County. So that's at one of the high schools. They invited us in for a Ending the Silence presentation, which is great. That's one of our young adult presenters. And then what's good about Ending the Silence too is there's an option for in-person. There's also an option for on-demand. Either way, you can fill out this QR code and to request a free presentation. And so also Ending the Silence presentations can be done for students, which is sort of what I was talking about, right? By going in the high school classroom. They can also be done for school staff, a different version, but similar presentation. And then there's also a version of the presentation specifically for parents and caregivers. Okay. Sorry, technical difficulties. All right, so that is NAMI Ending the Silence. And so a lot of many of our local NAMI affiliates, so if we think back to that map, it's that blurry thing behind me, run this program of Ending the Silence. So they'll come in person. In person, we hear is the most impactful version of the presentation. However, if there's not local NAMI affiliate in your area or just any other reason, there's also that on-demand version. But if there's not a local affiliate that is running that in your area, we will send our NAMI Wisconsin traveling ETS team, and so we'll basically come to you. All right, so next, I should say ending the silence is best for high school students. It has been done also in middle schools. Best for high schoolers, though. All right, and now we've moved up to college-aged students with a program called NAMI on Campus. This is an extracurricular club similar to Raise Your Voice, and yet it's on a college campus. And so here are a couple pictures of our on-campus clubs tabling. We have 4 of those at different universities and colleges across the state. Okay.
So all of those programs are available for schools or youth organizations or whatever it is to provide to youth. The first program where you watch the video, that is just available online. But the other programs are definitely things if you feel like would fit well in your community, we would be happy to talk to you more about. Our goal is to provide support at every level. So whether it's education for youth or opportunities for youth advocacy, or it's providing support to the parents or caregivers who really need some extra support, that is also available. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about programs that are available for those that are supporting a child who is living with or newly diagnosed with a mental illness. So there's a few programs that are available. We have our family to family program, our family support groups, which are available, and Being Together and NAMI Basics on Demand. I'm really going to talk mostly about our NAMI Basics on Demand here for a moment. NAMI Basics on Demand is an online program that is available to anyone in the country. That all you have to do is kind of sign up and put your name and email in there, and then it'll go through kind of an online version of a self-paced class. And this really helps for parents who are having a child who's diagnosed recently or really struggling with a diagnosis and how to help their child. It goes through the basics of diagnoses. It also goes through things like how to advocate for your child at a doctor's appointment, how to advocate for your child in school, what is an IEP, how do you get an IEP for your child, things like that. It goes through all of those different areas. The really cool thing about this program is that it has a lot of different places you can kind of click into. And that means that there's a lot of really great information, but also you can kind of download your own personal library with resources that you think you'd want to go back to. So when you end the training, the areas that are most important to you at the time of taking the training, you can kind of download as one big PDF to have for yourself and to be able to go back to, which I think is really great. So that is what NAMI Basics on Demand is. And then the other is NAMI Being Together. And that's really important for anybody in the state because this is where any online classes or support groups will be listed that are open to anyone in the state. So we have support groups for family members on there that anyone can go to at any time if they're identifying as a family member of somebody living with a mental illness. But also, I just want to point out that there are support groups on there for those living with a mental illness. We call those peer support groups, and anyone can utilize those as well. They are not meant for people under the age of 18 for the most part, unless specifically designated on there. And the cool thing is too, is that there are some specialty groups on there. So for our family support groups, there may be a specialty group that is for parents specifically. There may be a specialty group for spouses. I know that's not mostly what we're talking about today, but it's a cool space. All the support groups on there are free. All the classes that are listed on there are free. Everything that we provide is just a resource to our community. So that's kind of our goal. So if you have any questions about these, we'll have time at the end. But it's just a really great space to be able to do that. And if you're looking for those family support groups, those family to family classes, and you do not have a local affiliate in your area, so that map at the beginning that we showed, you can go to that Being Together space. And if you do, you may want to directly reach out and see if there are classes or support groups in person, because those are also really valuable as well. And then we want to just share some other resources that are outside of NAMI, but are important when working with individuals who live with mental illness, especially with youth. The first is finding our local affiliate. So if you do not see a local affiliate on this map, that means you don't have one at this time, but that doesn't mean you'll never have one. But you can find the information at namiwisconsin.org/find-my-NAMI to find, the specific information. So if you live in Portage or Wood County, it would give you the information for NAMI Portage Wood and how to reach out to them. If you'd like, all of our NAMIs operate kind of a support call line where you can kind of call and ask for information about, resources in your area, or for some extra support if that's something that you need. The next thing we have is mental health resources. So there's two really important mental health resources that I want to make sure that we share today. The first is called our NAMI Wisconsin Resource Guide. And this is something that we at our office at NAMI Wisconsin are very proud of, because it is an up-to-date, and we update it every year, guide for living with a mental illness or having a family member who lives with a mental illness, and the resources in Wisconsin. So it goes through many of the mental illness diagnoses. What does that look like? What are the signs and symptoms? It also goes through things like how to support a family member. It goes through information about, what do you do if your family member needs to have an involuntary commitment due to mental illness. It goes through legal resources. It goes through all different stuff. It does have a specific section on supporting youth and young adults as well, and special populations. So if you're supporting someone in the LGBT community, if you're supporting an older adult, if you're looking at any of those areas, I believe it's like 150, maybe it's 100 and it's a lot of pages is the answer. So you can download that for free. The other thing is, if you would like a copy, that is a paper copy, if you want the bound book, there is on that same page, I believe, that I just sent, and will be in the PowerPoint. You can order one from our office and we'll ship it to you for free. And if you're ordering for an organization, we will send 5. If you need more than that, we do have a small cost just to cover the cost of the resource guides themselves. But we really are proud of that resource. We feel like it's a resource that everybody should know about, especially if they're supporting individuals living with a mental illness. The other resource that we have is called our NAMI Wisconsin Quick Guide. That is just it is what the name says it is. It is all of the resources that are most called or requested when people call our office at NAMI Wisconsin, just put into a quick front back quick guide. And so that is something that I find, as someone who supports people, very, very helpful, because it has the most requested resources that we give out to those families and peers that are needing support. Perfect. So then our national office has a really great resource for youth specifically. So this is for supporting youth, and it has information about supporting accommodations in school, what to do if a youth is in a crisis, what does residential treatment look like for youth, how to talk to your parents or guardian if you are a youth about your mental health, information about social media and mental health. This really has a lot of really great national additional resources, but also just some really good articles and information for youth and also for parents who are looking to support their child, or not just parents, teachers, professionals, all of that good stuff. I'm hoping everyone on this call knows about this, but you know, sometimes we still run into people who don't. Back in oh my goodness, I'm going to say 2023, the 988 crisis line was launched. This is the 988 suicide and crisis line, which is the National Suicide Prevention Line. The actual the new name for the National Suicide Prevention Line, which launched in 2005. So the line hasn't changed, but there have been some changes. So just like you could call 911 in an emergency, you can call 988 in a mental health emergency. This is really, really awesome resource that's available. It's for anyone who needs access to care. And you just dial 988. It's available in multiple languages. You can send it text messages, and you can even go to 988lifeline.org and do some messaging there if that's something that is available. Something that I think is really important that I find that a lot of people do know about 988 now, but they don't know that you can reach out to 988 as a loved one if your family member is in crisis and ask for support or advice. And I don't think that people are quite aware that it is there for people to call when they're in crisis, but it is also there if you have someone in your life that's in crisis and you need support. We always say if a person is at risk of harming themselves or others, we tell people to still call 911 if it's that immediate risk, and ask for a mental health trained officer or a CIT officer. But in other situations, 988 is a really great resource. And then we end our PowerPoint today with a lot of different resources. And I'm not going to go through all of these, but there are a lot of different resources that you'll find in the back of this PowerPoint that you'll all have access to for families that are experiencing mental illness in their families. So there are quite a few on this page, and then the next page, I believe, as well. Yep. So all of those links and resources will be there. All of these can also be found in that resource guide that I talked about earlier. So we have a question for you before we ask. Well, you can ask us questions as well, but we do have a question for you. Are there any programs that stand out as something that would be helpful in your community? Or is there something that we're missing that you would like to tell us about that, that would be helpful? Because that's what we're here for. Or any questions you have about any of our programs also works.
You can also put it in the chat. I guess we answered everything.
Did a great job.
Were we thorough? I don't know. Cool.
Thanks, Erin. Erin said that they were, let's talk about mental health and mental health chat are great. And thank you, Erica, as well. Yeah, we're here to answer any questions that you guys have. You can reach us at the end of the PowerPoint. Also, we're just going to refer back to the PowerPoint for everything. There is a slide that has our general email, which is programs@namiwisconsin.org, and we will answer any questions there. Yeah, thank you for having us. Thank you for giving us your time. We hope that you'll share any of these resources if you think that they are going to be helpful to the people you work with or just the people in your life. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much to Emily and Molly. Emily and Molly, hopefully you're seeing there's lots of love in the chat for the
Yeah.
presentation today and the work that you all do. So thank you again for being here and for that great information. As they said, the presentation slides will be made available, so I will make sure that those get sent out to everyone here on the call so folks have access to all that great information and those links that were shared.
Well, thank you all so much.
Awesome. Thanks for having us. Bye,
Yeah.
everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, we're going to go ahead and just talk through a few next steps and wrap up for today. So a reminder that our next regional workshop will be May 29th. Please be on the lookout for meeting invites for your applicable region. A quick refresher on what those regional workshops look like. So those workshops are held quarterly, and they are highly participatory peer-to-peer learning spaces. So we really want to cultivate space for health department folks doing similar work to really have the opportunity to share with and learn from one another. If you are seeing the updates that folks were sharing earlier, folks are doing really exciting work in this space. So giving everyone an opportunity to share. So we will ask you to come prepared to share about your work and to ask questions of one another so that the workshops can be highly beneficial to everyone's learning. So the cohorts for those spaces are flexible. We're working with a Western, Eastern, and urban region. So if you are interested in switching regions, we are able to accommodate that. Just reach out to your coordinator. And for folks who attended that first regional workshop in February, we'd welcome you to share any feedback or maybe something you learned from a partner or that you've applied to your adolescent well-being work from that workshop. A quick reminder that our 2 remaining learning community calls will be held Wednesday, July 30th from 11:30 to 1 and Wednesday, October 22nd from 11:30 to 1. A quick note that that latter date was moved from October 29th so as not to conflict with the statewide MCH summit. So folks should have those invites for the rest of the year, but if you have not received them, please reach out to us at Youth Health, and that email will be shared in the chat. And then in our last few minutes here, I will ask folks to please complete the Learning Community Call survey. So the QR code is here and the link is in the chat. There are only 5 questions, so it is relatively quick, and it's very helpful for us to get feedback on what went well on the call, what could be improved. We use what you share with us to plan future calls and better meet your needs. And for folks who are able to complete that while on the call today, the completed evaluation also counts as your required attendance for the learning community call. So I'm going to give folks a couple minutes to do that now. And as folks are completing that survey, you are welcome to hop off. Thank you again for being here today. Our team will stick around if there's any questions that you have. Should have some music playing to accompany everyone's survey. Thanks, Lily.